On August 10th, 2011, MIT published an article entitled, "New Drug Could Cure Nearly Any Viral Infection." Researchers at MIT had just developed DRACO, a medication that promised to completely eliminate the common cold, HIV, influenza, dengue fever, polio, Ebola, herpes, and more. Dr. Todd Rider, the lead author and researcher of DRACO, said, "In theory, it should work against all viruses." I'm 35 now. I was 24 when I first read this article. My mind was blown. I don't think it's possible to overstate how huge this was. A single development would finally free humanity from all viruses. The common cold, gone. Flu, gone. COVID, gone. HIV/AIDS, gone. Herpes, gone. I have a cold right now. In laboratory and animal testing, the theory proved true. In mice, viral infections were completely eliminated with zero adverse side effects. Humans are a long way from mice, but mice are already a long way from petri dishes, and the future seemed bright and promising. It's now 2025. The future. Almost 15 years since the DRACO research article was published. There is no viral panacea. Humanity still suffers and dies because of viruses. Further research into DRACO was never funded. It and related treatments faded into obscurity, forgotten. And with DRACO, disappeared that beautiful dream, a future in which humanity is free, finally, from the blight of viruses forever. But I never forgot. And throughout the years, I started asking one question, first quietly, and then more and more loudly. What the fuck happened? The invention of antibiotics revolutionized medicine. Finally, we had a powerful tool to combat bacterial infections that were once often fatal. For most of human history, we were as powerless against bacteria as we were against the inevitability of death itself. The Black Death pandemic of the 14th century killed up to half the population of Europe. The same bacteria, Yersinia pestis, is responsible for many other historical epidemics and hundreds of millions of deaths. In the 18th and 19th centuries, tuberculosis, known as White Death, was responsible for 25% of all deaths in Europe. Also known as consumption at the time, it is a slow, wasting disease with a 50% mortality rate, without treatment by antibiotics.
The White Death has haunted humanity like no other disease, following us for thousands, maybe millions of years. In the last 200 years, it killed 1 billion people. Right now, 1 in 4 humans alive are infected with the bacterium.
Many strains of TB are now antibiotic resistant, and the disease still kills over 1 million people worldwide every year due to lack of access to the required treatments. But because of antibiotics, we can cure any individual case with a long enough treatment. Antibiotics, they're not perfect, and due to our overuse and misuse of these tools, we have inadvertently created strains of bacteria resistant to them. But since their discovery just over 100 years ago, antibiotics have saved countless lives and given us a greater degree of control over our own destinies. We're no longer powerless against bacterial infection. Antivirals are a different story. There are currently about 220 viruses known to infect humans. Right now, there are approved antiviral treatments for only 11 of those 220 viruses. And most of those treatments are not cures. On average, viruses like HIV, influenza, COVID-19, and hepatitis cause 15 to 20 million deaths per year worldwide. They and other viruses also impose suffering and lost productivity on the billions of people they infect but don't kill each year. Like me. DRACO took a different approach than other antivirals. It worked by selectively triggering apoptosis only within cells infected by viruses.
First cell viruses make long double-stranded RNA. It looks kind of like the DNA double helix, like my tie, but chemically it's distinct.
Apoptosis is a cell's version of suicide, and it's a natural process. Cells are programmed to systematically break down and remove themselves without causing harm to surrounding cells. Apoptosis is usually triggered once a cell becomes damaged, unnecessary, old, infected, or otherwise harmful to the greater organism. Viruses hijack cells by entering them and taking over their machinery. They inject their genetic material into the cell, tricking it into making more virus particles instead of doing its normal job. Then, once enough viruses are made, they burst out of the cell and they go on to infect more cells. This means that any cell infected by a virus is worse than dead. It's been turned into a weapon against the greater organism. Us. The best thing that can happen to those cells now is immediate death, before the virus has a chance to replicate and attack other cells.
DRACOs are designed to look for this long viral double-stranded RNA. If they find that, multiple DRACOs will bind to the viral RNA. That lets the back end of the DRACOs then activate a suicide switch.
This is what DRACO was intended to accomplish. Every year or two, I would search for news about DRACO. Occasionally I would see an update, but they were almost always disappointing. In late 2015, Todd Rider attempted to crowdfund further research on Indiegogo. The campaign's goal was $100,000, which is a pretty small figure for the medical research field. The campaign was not able to meet even this modest goal, instead reaching $60,823 from 600 backers. A second campaign ran in 2016, this time reaching $39,382 of a new $100,000 goal. So the total raised between the two campaigns actually was $100,205. But to help put this figure into perspective, 2016 was also the year that OnlyFans was founded. Consumers have, at this point, spent over $15 billion on OnlyFans. This is... $149,693 times the amount of money people were willing to cough up to cure all viruses. This fact jeopardizes even my sense of optimism. This whole timeline is summed up nicely in this article on FightAging.com. Quote, when Dr. Todd Rider announced his breakthrough DRACO discovery in 2011, the world sat up and took notice. Headlines read, experimental drug could defeat any virus, and a kill switch for all viruses. Rider's discovery was called visionary by the White House and named one of the best inventions of the year by Time magazine. But then, nothing happened. Rider lost his funding. He tried crowdfunding and failed, and very little has been heard of him and his revolutionary discovery since. Then 2020 arrived, and with it a new viral pandemic. As we all know, COVID-19 shut down the world and has killed over 7 million people in the last 5 years. The total monetary cost to the world of COVID-19 is estimated at more than $16 trillion, roughly 90% of annual GDP of the United States. And I'm left here wondering, did this need to happen? If we had just put in a few $1 million into researching the cure to all viruses, maybe we could have just shut down COVID-19 by swallowing the same pill everyone now takes when they get a cold. Problem solved. Doesn't that sound like a nice alternate timeline? Dr. Todd Rider is the man at the center of the DRACO story. Rider was the lead researcher who initially published MIT's paper on DRACO, and he's always been the face of the project. Rider is the one who posted both Indiegogo campaigns, and he has been the one interviewed or featured in any media. Can we please cure viruses already? Here are some things I have found out about Todd. Since DRACO, he has written what may be one of the longest books ever, Forgotten Creators. a 6,000 plus page PDF covering the innovations of the predominantly German-speaking scientific world during the period circa 1800 to 1945. It's available for download as a free PDF on his website. He loves creating cool-sounding acronyms.
I love acronyms.
He is the founder of the Rider Institute, which of course stands for Revolutionary Innovation, Discovery, Education, and Research. As far as I can tell, the Rider Institute is just Todd Rider, but no shade. The companies and endeavors I create are all just me too, so I understand. Todd is available for classroom appearances. He has been a judge at a variety of science competitions. He says that he's a 1995 graduate and longtime staff member from MIT with decades of experience creating novel, multidisciplinary science, research, and education programs. And, as far as I've been able to find, Todd Rider never released an update about research on DRACO since the second Indiegogo campaign closed in 2016. Almost 9 years ago. These facts are not enough to satisfy me. I have questions. Many scenarios come to mind. Was there a governmental or big pharma conspiracy to suppress actual cures so that these greedy corporations could continue to sell treatments and profit from human suffering? Was DRACO's potential overstated or the research flawed? Or is it just that difficult to secure funding for new paradigm medications even when they could revolutionize healthcare and save billions of people from suffering and death? Who is this Dr. Todd Rider anyway? Why did he move on from DRACO? Was he threatened? Did he just give up and move on due to a lack of support? Which is understandable. But when someone else started to pick up the torch and research this line of antivirals, why didn't Todd Rider help them? That's right. In August of 2020, the company Kimmer Med was established in New Zealand to develop Vitos, a derivative of DRACO. Kimmer Med licensed the final DRACO-related patent from MIT and began developing their own broad-spectrum antiviral based on the DRACO approach. They had a successful $4.2 million seed funding round in 2021, and since then, Kimmer Med's scientists have achieved successful antiviral results against more than 19 human viruses, most of which have no current available treatments. These include the common cold, dengue fever, Zika virus, herpes, influenza, and more. I reached out to Kimmer Med, and they were kind enough to reply and answer the questions that I had for them. Notably, I asked, the promise of DRACO was one medication to cure nearly all viruses. Does that still seem possible, or has the vision changed based on new discoveries? The CEO, Rick Kiesig, replied in part, our vision is an end to viral disease through a family of broad-spectrum antiviral therapeutics. Rather than one drug, all bugs, our approach is a few drugs, many bugs. We have developed several candidate antiviral proteins. Between them, we've shown efficacy against 21 different viruses using cell-based studies. We are planning studies in animals later this year. So, progress. It's happening once more. Of course, it's a long road from here, but I'm at least relieved to know that hope is still alive in this line of research. I also asked Rick, how much influence did the DRACO research have on Kimmer Med's initial work? Was there any contact with members of the DRACO research team? And he said, the original DRACO work was the inspiration for forming Kimmer Med, so it was influential in that regard. We had some brief contact with one member of Rider's team and with MIT Lincoln Labs, but never with Rider himself, although we tried to reach him many times and from many different directions. I also tried to reach Dr. Rider more than a month ago and asked him these questions myself. I did not get a response. So that's where we are today, in 2025. It seems this drug model is less simply miraculous than first described, but it still has enormous potential. The common cold alone results in tens of billions of infections each year, leading to 70 to 120 million lost workdays per year. I'm getting over one of those infections right now, and I want this potential to be realized ASAP. Will Kim or Med be the ones to do it? Initial signs are positive, and I sure hope it works out. I will say here that I don't expect this video to get hardly any views. That's because historical evidence from the last 15 years tells me that hardly anyone seems to care about a cure for all viruses. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing Kim or Med properly, because I wasn't able to find a single recording online of anyone saying the company's name, even in the sole interview with the CEO I found that has 500 views here on YouTube. By and large, people don't watch videos about this, and they don't donate to fund it, as we saw from the Indiegogo campaigns. Don't ask me why. To me, this is far more interesting than the latest season of Survivor or whatever you all care about. But just in case you are watching this and you want to help bolster my faith in humanity by diverting your OnlyFans budget for the month, they're accepting donations at donate.kimmermed.co.nz, as they say, across the pond. Whatever the real story is about Todd Rider, why he was unable to secure enough funding to follow through on a miracle drug, why he disappeared from the public eye, why he refused to communicate with Kim or Med when they picked up the torch, I still don't know. If anyone watches this video and knows more than I do, get in touch with me. Or Todd, if you want to respond to my message and set the record straight, I'll be overjoyed to hear back from you, honestly. Regardless of the answers, however, I'm still grateful to Dr. Rider for helping to pioneer this approach to antivirals, an approach that someday, I hope, may lead to a humanity finally free from the threat of viruses.